Now, say hello to YouTube, guys, because this is going to be a little bit of a reaction again. Ladies and gentlemen, on YouTube, we're going to watch the greatest feat in video game history. Video done by Karl Jobst. I was like providing some footage for this video, and Karl, I gotta say something about Karl real quick. Like, at least for this video, I'm pretty sure it's for every video he does. He did an incredible amount of research. He really got into the Hitless community, and he researched quite a lot of things before he did this video. This took probably weeks, if not even months, for him to create, just so you know, okay? Like, he really puts in the work for these videos. So big shout-outs to Karl Jobst. Please go and hit that subscription button on his channel. I'm gonna link it down below on YouTube as well. And here we fucking go with the video, you know?
Hello, you absolute legends.
Hello.
How does one prove complete dominance over a game?
Yeah,
Since the
Twitch,
birth of video games
also
half a
see it on
century
YouTube.
ago, gamers everywhere have been clamoring to show they have mastered the hobby better than anyone else. There are many ways you can display.
Oh, you can't see it. Oh shit, I'm sorry.
Your skill, but which is the best indicator of a player's overall competency? In the early years, by far the most widely accepted metric for one's ability was the high score. The premise is simple.
This is a little bit of an older video, yes. This is like a year old now, or 1.5 years, I'm not quite sure. Why? You probably already saw it. Like, this is also a little bit of Hitless history, okay?
If you can make the number bigger than everyone
Some of
else,
you might have
you
not.
are the best player. It's interesting to look back on those more primitive games and realize that high scores were such an integral part of their design. As technology progressed and the
Great,
immersive
Lawrence,
quality of
thanks.
games improved, the need for a high score as a motivator diminished. Simply experiencing the game became incentive enough to keep people playing. Score counters gave way to detailed storylines and complex gameplay mechanics.
Did you guys ever see someone run Zelda games, speedrunning Zelda games, like older Zelda games? Because I've never seen a Zelda speedrun ever, I believe.
In its place, a new metric
Retro
would be
games,
needed
yes.
in order to differentiate the strong from the
All the
weak,
time.
and that metric was
Hitless,
time. Gamers went from trying to play for as long as possible, eking out every point,
Sure,
to
thank you
playing
very
as
much.
briefly as possible. Now, if you could make the number lower
Alerts
than
are
everyone
muted at
else,
the moment.
you are the best player. In the 90s, another form of gaming competition was beginning to emerge as well. By this point, video games had sufficiently evolved in complexity to facilitate deep and rewarding player-versus-player combat. With the fighting and real-time strategy genres coming fully into their own, the birth of competitive esports could truly begin. And let's be honest, when it comes to pure work ethic, nothing rivals the output seen in esports teams, especially those in South Korea, where players practice.
Dude, did you guys ever see these StarCraft players play StarCraft on a high level? Like, the way they play with the shortcuts on the keyboard and everything, it is absolutely insane. It is insane. Absolutely, I've never seen anything like it. Inhuman? Yeah, it's insane.
8 to 12 hours
What is DST? I'm sorry, Shazam.
every single day. When it comes to pure realized skill, it's hard to argue that anything tops what is seen in games like StarCraft. But ultimately,
right.
achievements in this field are hard to quantify, as by definition, they are against other human beings with all of their unpredictability and flaws. Whether you believe high score competition, speedrunning, or esports is the pinnacle of gaming will come down to personal preference. But there is one relatively new category of gaming.
Hey, look, it's Margin Phil, guys. No hitting. This is something I really want to do at some point as well. Like no hitting some older Zelda games like Majora's Mask. He's the only one to ever no-hit Majora's Mask. I think Hop never finished it, right?
That needs to be considered, and that is called no-hit. To be fair, no-hit has always been around in some limited form, but in the last few years it has exploded in popularity. And there is one particular gaming franchise that has been leading the charge in building this new genre, and that of course is Dark Souls. There is something uniquely captivating about Dark Souls no-hit runs. It is likely solely responsible for the idea of no-hit becoming as popular among gamers as it has. Dark Souls players continue to
Hey, the happy Hop, guys, look at him!
push the limits of what's possible, breaking barrier after barrier.
That was the first
And in
God run.
2021,
Oh my god, look at this, guys. Who's that? I'm gonna go further to the side so you can see, you know? Oh, wait a second.
The gamer Dinosindgeil managed to accomplish something that has to be considered as one of the greatest feats in video game history. In this video, we will take a look at what he did and why it is so important. I hope you enjoy.
The cleavage, right? That was back in the day before the hospital arc. Okay, we're gonna watch the ad, guys. A little bit of a disclaimer. I watched the ad in these videos, the ads in these videos, because I think it's like only fair, you know? Like, because I use his content basically for content, and I think it's only fair to watch the advertisement in these videos. I don't know if he still has this code and if he still gets paid for this, but I'm gonna watch it regardless because it's only fair to watch it.
Now a quick shout out to this video's sponsor, Skillshare. I am a huge advocate for learning, and Skillshare is the perfect place to grow and develop. Skillshare offers thousands of inspiring classes for you to explore new skills or master your existing talents. As someone who has amassed various skills over the years, I went through a few of the classes I already had some expertise in, and I can confirm the quality is extremely high. The teachers really know their stuff. Lately, I've been spending way too much time stressing about work, so I am going to take the course The Ultimate Self-Care Playbook by Jonathan Van Ness in order to find new ways to relax. Now, Skillshare has allowed me to offer a free trial of Skillshare Premium to the first 1,000 legends who click the link in the description. So please make sure to take advantage of this opportunity and start exploring your creativity today.
React harder? No, it's all good. I don't want to overdo it, you know? I'm
trying to beat a game without being hit by enemies isn't exactly
I still learn this type of thing, you know? I don't want to... I'm not a good reaction guy, but I want to learn it, and I want to get better at it, because I think you guys enjoy it as well a little bit, you know? And I do enjoy it, and I hope that we can do this more often, you know? For like several videos, not only no-hit videos.
It's essentially what players try to do anyway. We just don't succeed. We shy away from danger. We learn patterns and try to predict enemy behavior so that we can avoid their attacks. The basic human drive of self-preservation is still at work even when we play games. What most of us don't do, however, is make a conscious decision to practice a game for long enough to where we can actually do it. Completing a game without being hit has always been a symbol of mastery, and it's arguably an easier one to understand than something like speedrunning. 20 years ago, when speedrunning was still coming into its own, I vividly remember reading comments like, "Sure, that's great, but try doing it without getting hit." It seems like many people valued perfection over speed. In GoldenEye specifically, speedrunners would compete in a side league.
But isn't the speedrunning community not way, way, way bigger than the Hitless community? Like, just way bigger, right?
Called License to Kill. For a skilled player, merely beating the game untouched is far too easy. So to make things more difficult, we would increase enemy stats. Guards react quicker, have perfect accuracy, and will kill you in a single hit. Now this is a true challenge, and it would take years before someone would beat every level in this fashion, with the player Greg Watmore achieving this feat in late 2002. Most speedrunning communities of popular games have some kind of side challenge involving hitless or damageless runs. Some games even have this challenge built in, like the Golden Strawberries of Celeste, which can only be earned by completing an entire chapter.
Somebody did like, what do you call it, damageless? GDA? Hey Kyle, hello.
Without a single death. But nothing comes close in terms of both magnitude and insanity to the community centered around the Dark Souls franchise. The original Dark Souls was a phenomenon, and is cited as one of the greatest video games ever made. It is undoubtedly a classic, and is near perfect in every way. It is also extremely difficult, which frustrated the most casual of gamers, but served to make the game even more endearing to those looking for a challenge. The combat in Dark Souls is amazingly well crafted, and boss fights offer an experience that is both equal parts demanding, complex, frustrating, and fair. As long as you've attained the requisite amount of skill and knowledge, you can make pretty short work of them. The steep learning curve combined with a rewarding command over the game once proficiency is reached is one of the reasons it is seen as the pinnacle of game design. Naturally, being a game that is often touted as one of the most challenging mainstream entries ever made, players saw it as a great opportunity to prove their talents. For the years immediately preceding the game's release, the pinnacle of achievement was seen as no-death runs, getting through the entire game without dying a single time. But in 2013, 2 Japanese speedrunners.
Okay, these guys are actually insane. I didn't even know that Karl Jobst found it while he was researching. In 2013, there were Japanese guys who actually no-damage Dark Souls. Like, they used shields and blocked damage with all of that. But imagine, dude, that was 2013. That's 3 years before Hob even started Hitless running. A link to this video. I'm sorry, I'm gonna link it to you guys. Could a mod like pin this video maybe real quick? This is the video. I really have to get better at reaction streams, right? This is the video. Could a moderator pin this, please? That would be super nice.
Runners Otsunari and Ihel would do something incredible. They would beat the game without taking any damage from enemies. As amazing as these runs were, they didn't seem to garner much attention from the gaming community, at least in the West. These early playthroughs were definitely ahead of their time, but aren't the kind of thing we would describe as no-hit using today's standards. For example, the use of magic was heavily abused in order to avoid direct confrontations with enemies. And perhaps even more importantly, shields were used to block attacks. While these blocks did prevent damage, the use of a shield makes things significantly easier, and are strictly forbidden by damageless players of the current era. The true, modern version of no-hit wouldn't appear until late 2015, when legendary gamer the Happy Hob decided to push Dark Souls even further. He would attempt to beat Dark Souls.
You could watch the video on a full screen. Yeah, I know, but it doesn't matter. Like, the moment I pause it, it's up here, you know. And I really would like to watch the video. Could you pin the link I posted up there?
Without being hit by enemies, but he would do it without the use of magic or blocking with a shield. After months of effort, on the 16th of February 2016, he would finally complete that challenge.
There he is, guys. The Happy Hob.
Oh no. World record! Holy shit!
Let's go, baby. The neck gets longer and longer.
We did it!
The Happy Hob's run was a big deal, and in an interview following the achievement, the creator of Dark Souls, Hidetaka Miyazaki, was quoted as saying he didn't believe it. The timing of the first no-hit run couldn't have been more impeccable either. At this point in time, the gaming world was anxiously awaiting the release of Dark Souls 3. There was plenty of hype surrounding the upcoming installment, and Hob's no-hit run inspired gamers to secure their own world first. They wanted to be the first person to beat Dark Souls 3 without being hit. It took gamers 5 years to beat Dark Souls in this fashion, but Dark Souls 3 would be conquered in only 3 months. While Happy Hob's original Dark Souls run.
And the reason for that is, I believe at least, the reason for that is that Dark Souls 1 was routed only by the Happy Hob. There was nobody participating, you know? Like, Hob was alone, basically. Like, he had chat, of course, but then, like, on Dark Souls 3, there were multiple people participating and they helped each other, you know? That's why Elden Ring was falling, like, in literal weeks as well. Because there were just so many people running it, and then bibbidi-bobbidi-boo, you got a no-hit run, right?
Run was essentially a solo effort. There was now a group of committed gamers racing to topple the third game. After an intense race, the honor of being the first person to beat Dark Souls 3 hitless went to Faraz Khan.
Plin, plin, plon.
Get fucked! Get fucking fucked, man! Holy shit! I did it! 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 I can't believe I did it! I did it! I did it!
Also 2016?
I did it! I legit did it!
Crazy.
Oh my god!
From here, the floodgates opened, with no-hit players spreading to every game in the franchise, even Bloodborne. In 2017, Demon Souls Bloodborne, and Dark Souls 2 were all beaten in this way. Bloodborne isn't exactly part of the Dark Souls universe, but it's a staple in the Dark Souls no-hit community. It was
it's the same gameplay, right? Like, Bloodborne has the same type of gameplay, and it's, like, really fun to play as well. I think the differences with Bloodborne gameplay makes it so unique and so much fun to play. Because you can, like, with the limb stackers and Zeus, when he was still around. The limb staggers and all of that stuff that makes it just really fun. With the bleeds blood pellets,
Developed by the same company FromSoft, and was also directed by the creator of Dark Souls himself, Hidetaka Miyazaki. Once a game was beaten, there were two directions a player could go. They could either make the challenge more difficult or make it longer, attempting to beat more than one game consecutively. Today I will be exploring the latter, but both avenues deserve credit. One of the crazier examples is the gamer That Cool Black Dude beating every single boss in Dark Souls without being hit using only the straight sword hilt, the quote-unquote starting weapon that does barely any damage. Beating a single Dark Souls game unscathed is challenging enough, but what about all three back to back? After being
the first one to no-hit Dark Souls 2 was Hop. This is the first no-hit run on Dark Souls 2. He was the first one to beat it all bosses.
Being the first person to complete all three games separately in 2017, the Happy Hob set his sights on doing the impossible. 8 months later, he would be facing the final boss on Dark Souls 3, on the cusp of creating gaming history. After 9.5 hours of perfection, this happened.
Dude, that was a hit. That was such a stupid hit.
No! Oh my fucking god!
Ouch. That's so painful, dude.
Fucking way. No fucking way. No.
Imagine by the very end.
One of the most
dude,
infamous chokes in Dark Souls or even gaming history, it shows how unforgiving the games really are. With each extra game added to a no-hit marathon, things become exponentially more difficult.
Exactly.
Not only because the statistical likelihood of success diminishes greatly with each addition, but also due to the simple fact that these marathons take many hours to complete. By the end, players are physically and mentally exhausted. But even up to and including the final boss, a single mistake will cost you everything. Thankfully, Hob wouldn't be deterred.
Also, I gotta say, on top of that, like, you get nervous by the end of a no-hit run, If you run a single game, and let's say the single game is an hour long, or let it be an hour and a half, or whatever, and then you run through, and the last 15, maybe half hour, 15 minutes or something, you're really nervous, But when you run a long marathon, you get nervous earlier, or not earlier, you're still at the end, but there are still hours to run, Like, you're in last game, and you have still, like, 2 hours to run, and you get slower by the end. And these, like, hours are incredibly hard to run then, because you are nervous on top, and there's still much run left,
And after another month of effort, on the 9th of March 2018, he would do this.
Trilogy no-hit run! We did it! Fucking 12 months! Game in history! Dark Souls history!
This was monumental, and wasn't just an important moment in the no-hit community, but also in the gaming community in general. The achievement was even heavily celebrated in the speedrunning community, which is when I personally first took notice of Dark Souls no-hit. With the trilogy completed, it seemed as if there was nowhere left to go, but as history ended up showing, the Happy Hob disagreed. He immediately began work on not only Demon Souls, Dark Souls' predecessor, but Bloodborne as well. He would again attempt to do the unthinkable, beating 5 games in a row without being hit. The run is called Soulsborne, or the God Run, a monstrous marathon totaling 15 hours. When runs take this long, the fails become even more painful. In early March of 2019, Hob would be on the 5th game of the
Dude,
God Run.
the fucking
and
Vanguard.
this happened.
Oh my god, I forgot about... You guys remember that hit? Not the fucking Vanguard! Now we can laugh about it, you know? But back then, that was so painful, dude. Not the fucking Vanguard!
No! Fuck! No! No! No, dude! No! No! Not the fucking Vanguard!
Oh my god, not the fucking Vanguard!
This wasn't even on a particularly difficult boss, but Dark Souls no hit is extremely punishing, and runs can end at any moment. Hob's plan was to complete the run before the release of the next FromSoft game, Sekiro, scheduled for release in late March. Truthfully, it seemed like an impossible task, but on the 21st of March 2019, one day before release, Hob would do this.
Right? Like, fucking imagine, this was one of the most beautiful moments I've ever seen. I gotta say this real quick. This was one of the most beautiful moments in Hitless, not gonna lie. I watched it live, and I still remember it, because I had 40 degrees fever, but I had to watch it regardless. And I was super sick that day. And I watched it live, and that was such a beautiful moment, dude. That was so awesome, right?
Soulsborne no hit run! We did it!
So great. And then he ran in a circle for 5 minutes.
This was it. The run to end all runs. 16 hours of perfect play. There was surely nowhere to go from here. Well, at least until the next day, when Sekiro was released. As stupidly difficult as the God Run was, Hob decided that it still wasn't enough. He immediately began work with Sekiro, and once he had finished it with no hits, he would attempt to complete the sequel to the God Run, the God Run 2, 6 games back to back. In 2016, the mere idea of completing a single game was almost unthinkable to most people, and when you look at the reactions of the gamers that were the first to do it, you can see how important it was. It's really crazy to think how far the community has come since those early days. The Happy Hob would work on the God Run 2, otherwise known as Soulsborne Kiro, for the next 1.5 years. The difficulty of these marathons had become so great that if you did decide to give them a go, you'd almost certainly need to dedicate months or even years. The Happy Hob had been the face of Dark Souls no hit since day one, being the first to beat the original Dark Souls, the trilogy, and Soulsborne. It seems almost inevitable that he would be the one to first complete Soulsborne Kiro. But shockingly, this wouldn't be the case. On the 12th of October 2020, a relatively unknown
legendary
streamer by the name of Dobby Summer would be the
legendary Dobby Summer, dude, comes in and sweeps away the God Run 2. That was insane, right?
Soulsborne Kiro no hit run!
Let's go, Dobby, baby! When you're at the last game of a 6 game run, you can totally bow your way through. But he was so done as well. I remember that.
A truly monumental achievement that surprisingly didn't really get any attention. Nonetheless, beating 6 games back to back to back without getting hit was already one of the greatest feats in video game history. As I mentioned earlier, there are 2 directions no-hit runners can go in order to make things more challenging. They can make runs longer or implement restrictions to make them more difficult. By this point, we had essentially reached the end when it comes to games that one could reasonably add that made any sense. There were just no more similar FromSoft games. Now players were required to make things harder, and that's where we come to the challenge known as SL1.
Here we are, guys.
In Dark Souls, players collect souls, which are dropped by enemies or bosses and are also found as consumables. These souls can be used at bonfires to level up our character, Increasing our level enables us to raise our stats, which is important for multiple reasons. Many weapons
Very
require
true,
our
right?
dexterity stat to be at a particular level before we can equip them. Soul Level 1, or SL1 for short, is a category of no-hit that restricts players from ever leveling up their character. This impacts the run tremendously. As we just mentioned, weapons require dexterity, so players can only use weapons that don't do as much damage. This extends the length.
And this is what I was talking about the other day. For example, on Dark Souls 2 right here, you have to wield the club or this like mace or whatever it is, because you can't use the rapier, you know? And only, like, if you were to have the stats to use the rapier, it would make the run significantly easier. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And that goes for other games as well. If you're unrestricted, you can make it like so much easier by using like magic or bows or whatever. But on Soul Level 1, you're very like narrowed down to what you can do. And then you have to play it in a certain way, you know? And late game fights become always endurance fights. Because you just don't have the damage. You have to fight bosses for quite a while.
Of almost every boss battle. But it's not
Crossbow,
just
yeah.
the length of time that makes it more difficult. Boss fights contain various phases that become progressively more difficult. For example, in Dark Souls 3, there is a boss called Dragon Slayer Armor. This fight has two distinct phases, and in the second phase, which begins when the armor gets to around 50% health, pilgrim butterflies from either side will begin raining down projectiles. So now you need to deal with both the armor and the projectiles, making it
See, and this is what I mean. He put so much effort into this and so much research that he notices details like this. This is actually a really good example. This fight becomes significantly harder on level 1. Because you have to fight second phase. And on level, like leveled, you just don't, you know? And that's why I like this video so much. Because he really puts a lot of work and effort into the research. It's awful. Yeah, it's absolutely awful. Second phase can fuck you up.
significantly
Dude.
more complex. However, in unrestricted no-hit runs, once the boss gets to around half health, players can execute an attack combination that basically ends the fight immediately, skipping the second phase. They can do this because the weapon they are able to equip outputs a sufficient amount of damage. SL1 players don't do enough damage for this combination to work, so they are forced to deal with both phases. And it's not just damage. Players can't even raise their endurance, meaning that their stamina bar never increases. Every attack, roll, and sprint costs stamina, meaning that the choice of action players can take are limited as well.
True.
But by far, the game that is impacted the most is Dark Souls 2. In the second installment, not only are we limited in the ways I just mentioned, but the amount of invincibility frames we get when rolling is directly tied to our stats. At level 1, our iframes last only a quarter of a second. This is half of what we get in other games.
Dude, he actually did the math on that, you know? It's Karl Jobst. Yeah, Jillo. He actually did the math on that. Insane. Yeah, ADP. Leveling ADP changes Dark Souls 2. Dark Souls 2 leveled is one of the easiest no-hit runs, or the easiest out of the trilogy, I would say. And level 1, it becomes the hardest. By far, the hardest. The other two games are not
To
even
appreciate
close.
just how much more difficult Dark Souls 2 is for SL1, we only have to look at how long it took for someone to finally beat it. Dark Souls 3 SL1 was beaten in 2016 by Squilla Killer. Dark Souls 2 SL1 wouldn't be beaten until January of 2019, accomplished by the Papa Finn. This was only 2 months before the Happy Hob beat 5 games back to back without the level restriction. Amazingly though, even with the insane difficulty of Dark Souls 2, players did get to work on beating all 3 Dark Souls games back to back at level 1. On the 4th of October 2019, legendary no-hit runner Squilla Killer was on the perfect run. He had beaten Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, the most difficult of the 3, and was now on the final boss of the 3rd game. The Lord of Cinder is the perfect boss fight to end a marathon on. The battle is extremely complex and has many different stages. It's an amazing showcase of every skill a no-hit runner needs to possess. Everything is intentional, even down to which direction the player rolls when avoiding attacks. You need to know when you can and can't attack, and you need to know when you should keep your distance or going close. In standard no-hit runs, this fight lasts around 3 minutes, but in SL1, it takes 7 or 8 minutes.
Dude, he actually checked how long it takes for an SL1 player to beat Cinder. But that's what I mean with Solo Cinder and Dragon Slayer Armor are by far the two hardest bosses. Just because of it becomes such an endurance fight, you know? You have to stay within that arena and fight this guy for so long that the likelihood of getting hit just increases, you know? I mean, these games are on top, not perfect. They can fuck you over. Uncle, thank you for the follow. They can fuck you over, you know? And you can get into real troublesome situations sometimes. Rada Beast is on level 1 almost scripted.
More than twice the length. And there is no downtime in this fight. It's action the entire way through.
The world might be mended. So the world might be mended.
Oh
Wait,
my
how could
god.
I miss this?
Oh my god. Oh my god, man.
Squilla Killer, ladies and gentlemen.
Man. I'm gonna cry too. That's oh, man.
After 7 hours of intense gameplay, Squilla Killer managed to close it out and make it to the end. Beating the Dark Souls trilogy without being hit and without leveling is an amazing achievement, arguably as challenging or even more so than the Soulsborne run of 5 games performed earlier that same year. But of course, the story doesn't end here. And if you've been paying attention, you probably know where this is going. After almost a year of working on each game individually, the gamer Dinosindgeil decided to take on the most difficult challenge yet. He would attempt to complete the God Run, 5 games back to back without leveling his character. To even consider attempting this kind of run is a testament to how far the community had come. While the individual tends to get all of the credit when a run is performed, the only reason these insane feats are even possible is because of the years of research, theory crafting, and dedication of many runners who devote their...
Yeah, shoutouts to the Hitless community. There are so many people out there who are way better than I when it comes down to no-hit runs. That is absolutely true. At this point, I have to acknowledge that there is in every game a professional player, basically. And some overall giga chats like Shilky or Gino, you know. So
time to creating new strategies. But at the end of the day, someone has to be the one to actually do it. And that man was Dinosindgeil. In 2021, he began daily attempts, and shockingly, it wouldn't take long before he would get some runs. And before I show you some clips, I just want to point out that during these marathon runs, you can play the games in whichever order you like. Switching the order around not only reduces boredom, but also allows runners to remain fresh on each game. On the 17th of January, he would be on Game 4, Bloodborne, and this would happen.
Yeah, fucking Amelia, dude. Ah, shit. I knew it, I fucking knew it. There was damage missing. I missed one hit on the lag.
He would get another run to Game 4 on the 2nd of February, this time Dark Souls 2.
And then we got stuck there, true.
Oh, can I
fuck,
actually
dude.
pass through these guys?
Oh yeah, I remember.
I can't. Dude,
February 12th, again he was on Game 4, playing Bloodborne.
Oh!
Dude, what the fuck?
Hey Phil, hi.
What the fuck? This is not... Dude, I thought he was dead.
On March 11th, he would reach Game 5 for the first time. He was over halfway through Demon Souls, and this would happen.
We worked so hard for this run, dude. That was such a hard one. Fucking ninja, right? With a knife, yeah. Ah, fuck.
Way, dude.
Ninja.
No way. No fucking way! I threw 1,000,000 skulls! In what universe would he fucking shoot at me?
This run shows that it's not just bosses where runs could end. Even regular mobs pose a massive threat. On March 18th, Dino would get another chance, again reaching Game 5. This time it was Dark Souls 3, in my opinion the perfect finisher. He had reached the Lord of Cinder, the game's final boss. After 15 hours of play, and on the cusp of creating Dark Souls history, he still needed to play the 8-minute fight to perfection, suffering from fatigue and under extreme...
Okay, this is where it's muted. Because of the wait a second. This is where it got muted because of the music, I believe. I'm not 100% sure why though, because it's like Divinity Original Sin music. But I can give you guys the fight from the original video if you want. You know? Give me a second. I pulled it up already because I knew it would be muted. And this is the original fight. But I'm gonna jump a little bit back. Here we are, guys. That was the last fight of the God Run 3 level 1. Do you guys know why this gets muted? Because on YouTube, because this is like in-game music, basically, just from a different video game. It makes no sense, right? I know from the past, baby. Can do it together. I played it so slow. I remember playing it so slow. I was just in a fucking tunnel, dude. There was just me and Solo Cinder. What happened? We were watching, or we're still watching Karl Jobst's video. And here you can see that I realized that it's over. The moment he jumped back, you can see it on my face that I realized it's over. Yeah, now. We did it. It was big, dude. We did it! Soulsborne, I dropped! Level 1. World record! Oh, that was fucking big, dude. I'm so done, we did it, guys! We fucking did it! We did it! Who's that guy crying? I don't know, what a loser, right? Okay, let's go jump back to Karl, because I think he has some stuff to say at the end. I'm just gonna jump it until he talks again.
Managed to beat...
Okay, here.
Honestly makes me emotional every single time I watch it. Dino managed to beat Bloodborne, Demon's Souls, Dark Souls, Dark Souls 2, and Dark Souls 3 back to back without being hit a single time and without increasing his character a single level. Truly one of the greatest achievements in video game history. The question now is, will this ever be taken further? And if so, who will be the one to do it? Elden Ring, the next FromSoft game, is set to come out in 2022, and not only will there be a race to be the first to complete it without being hit, but eyes are also on the grand prize of a 7-game back-to-back hitless run. One thing is for sure, it doesn't look like the madness will end anytime soon. And considering how far Dark Souls players have pushed the games in the last 5 years, I know that whatever happens will probably blow my mind. Now, before I finish the video, I would like to take this opportunity to correct something that I said in a previous video. Back in May, I talked about the new lawsuits filed by...
Okay, I think we don't have to see this. Or do you guys want to see this about, like, Billy Mitchell? I think it's not necessary, right? No? Okay. Yeah, say goodbye to YouTube, guys. That was it. I'm gonna leave you guys with this image right here. Say goodbye to YouTube. YouTube, thank you for watching. If you enjoy these reactions, you can like leave like a subscription or something on YouTube if you want. And if you're not, you can also downvote the video or write a very mean comment down below. It's up to you. Thank you for watching and bye bye.